It looks like Naz Reid is finally breaking out of his early season slump. It's been a really tough beginning of the season for Minnesota's cult hero, both on and off the court, but in the past 3 games we've seen the Naz Reid that we've come to expect, and the Naz Reid that Minnesota really need. Now 3 games is obviously a super small sample size stretch within a super small sample size of a season so far, but Reid has put up just under 18 points with 10 boards and 3 assists per game over those 3 games, while making 57% of his field goals and 47% of his threes. And funnily enough, I actually think his resurgence here actually started without the ball. His defense, his hustle plays, his intangibles on the court, all of those things that he hasn't really shown this season have all been really evident in these 3 games and seem to have helped him get his whole game in general into a rhythm. Sometimes it's just the simple things like making this low man rotation on time, forcing downhill scorers away from him, and turning easy drives into difficult shots instead. That's a shift from the defense that we've seen from him so far this season. It's really simple, but making this low man Reid, getting across, and helping to get stops is something we weren't seeing from Reid early in the season, and his defensive lapses did seem to be seeping into his offensive game as well. He's never going to produce his peak value on the defensive side of the floor, but I think by making less mistakes, he's able to be more free as a player in general. I honestly think this has made a massive difference in his overall game, and it's not just as a rotating rim protector either. As a team defender, he's dropping in here to tag the roll man, then flaring out with a controlled closeout and forcing a miss at the end of the possession. That's another confidence building defensive action that's helping to get his whole game back on track. Or here, he's getting over a ball screen, staying with a shifty guard, and blocking a shot at the rim. Again, he's never been a massive plus defensively, but we're seeing him beginning to rectify some of the issues that he's had previously this season. He's handling switches better, he's not getting lost in coverage as often, and he's helping prop up those minutes without Rudy Gobert on the floor by at least being somewhat of a deterrent at the rim. In those 3 games, Minnesota are allowing just 98 points per 100 possessions when he's on the court, compared to 118 points per 100 when he's off the court. He's been a huge defensive negative before this stretch, so that's a massive turnaround. And through both defense and hustle plays, he's parlaying this into his actual strengths. Reid is a machine gun scorer and an elite shooter at his size, and when he does this, Minnesota are a different beast. He starts this sequence with the perfect low man rotation and vertical contest. That forces the offense away from the rim and into less effective shots, and that puts him in positions to be a better rebounder, and it injects confidence into his game to come down at the other end and hit that trail 3 that he's made so often when he's playing well. Now this isn't a defensive possession here, but how often this season have we seen him not dig in here to impact a potential offensive rebound? By doing so here, he gets the Wolves out into transition and then sprinkles some of his stardust onto the play at the other end of the floor. It's just felt like this part of Naz Reid's game has been missing so far this season, and while it's been understandable given his off-season, it's really nice to see him find the flashy part of his game by tapping into some of the grimier parts of the game as a whole. And now that it feels like he's built that foundation of confidence again, we're seeing the things that Reid has done for years that are so helpful to this Wolves team. Mainly, he's an elite gravity capitalizer. You don't really want Naz Reid to be a high-volume self-creator, but if he's punishing defenses off the gravity of other players, he becomes a really deadly weapon. As a spacer in pick and roll, if his defender sags off to help, Naz Reid at his best is a release valve shooter who thrives off defenders trying to cheat off him and help their team defense. The version of Reid who can punish defenders for overhelping here becomes the perfect spacer for Julius Randle post-ups. It's either help off him or allow Randle to operate in space as an isolation threat. Again here on this next possession, you see that if the defense helps, then he's going to punish them by being that shooter from the corner. Above all other things, Reid regaining his stroke from deep and being that floor spacer who can exploit defenses for helping off him and trying to show bodies to Randle or Ant was the most important thing that Minnesota needed to return, because that provides a baseline of value for his offense, and then we get to see him as a threat off the catch in other ways. Like I said, he eats up defenses who overhelp off him. But if they do manage to recover back, he's quick off the bounce in space and a good finisher if he's got a driving lane to flow into. When Reid's at his best, it doesn't take much space for him to operate. A split second here where two defenders follow the ball and he's cracking the defense open with a straight line drive off the catch. These past 3 games have showed us that version of Naz Reid who can take dudes off the bounce way more consistently than we've seen all season so far. Even something as simple as his man just drifting off slightly here into gap help, if it forces a closeout and allows him to attack off the catch, he can be a real weapon going downhill. This is the version of Naz Reid Minnesota needs going forward. He's never going to be an elite defender, but he needs to be a solid presence, and he has been lately. He's never going to be a super high volume scorer, but he needs to be that offensive spark plug that he has been lately. He's never going to jack up 10 threes a game, but he needs to be that stretch big who punishes defenses for selling out to stop Minnesota's All-Stars. If he's that again, if he's the Naz Reid that Minnesota has had for the past few seasons, then the Wolves are going to add a different ingredient back into their recipe that we just haven't seen so far this season. If you want to see more of this version of Naz Reid, and you want to see more breakdowns like this one, hit subscribe and drop a like or a comment. And if you want more of Howls and Growls, check out the Worldwide Wolves podcast on YouTube or everywhere else that you listen to podcasts. Thanks again for watching.